And we get to our actual beginning. That's all kind of preface or prologue. The story begins, once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. And then we get the description of the room, we get the description of the day, and so on. That once upon a time, though, is worth noticing. Why? Because that is a stock fairy tale beginning. This is another genre we have to throw into the mix. The fairy tale. What does he get out of the fairy tale? Fairy tales are magic, so we get that sense of magic. Once upon a time also means, though, no time. It puts us outside of time. This thing that's happening to Scrooge, okay, there's all of this 1843 color, London, so on and so forth, all of that quote-unquote realism, but we're also outside of time. This is happening in an imaginative space that has never happened and yet is always true. We're in this kind of timeless space. This will make sense, right, when we get into the ghosts who are taking us past, present, and future, and all three at once. Time is at play. Once upon a time, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting weather, foggy withal, and he could hear the people in the court outside go wheezing up and down, beating their hands upon their breasts, and stamping their feet upon the pavement stones to warn them. We've got everybody moving by outside. There's life outside. There's lifelessness inside. The door of Scrooge's counting house was open that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, who in a dismal little cell beyond, a sort of tank, was copying letters. Not enough fire for poor Bob Cratchit. Scrooge's isolation is making other people suffer around him. The first thing that really happens that brings in action, it forces action into Scrooge's life, is his nephew's entry. "A Merry Christmas, Uncle, God save you," cried a cheerful voice. It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, who came upon him so quickly that this was the first intimation he had of his approach. So we get that voice first before we get any physical description of Fred. You have this voice breaking in on Scrooge, unwanted, unlooked for, and yet unavoidable. He's going to resist, of course. Bah! Humbug! He had so heated himself with rapid walking in the fog and frost, this nephew of Scrooge's, that he was all in a glow. His face was ruddy and handsome, his eyes sparkled, and his breath smoked again. "Christmas a humbug, Uncle? You don't mean that, I'm sure." So we immediately have this stark contrast between these guys. Fred is immediately blessing his uncle. God save you, Merry Christmas, wishing him the best. We have affirmation. We've got love, frankly. And then on the other hand, Scrooge, resistance, hard-heartedness. The opposite of affirmation, we've got negation. And we've also got heat on his nephew's side. He's been walking fast. He's all hot. We've got a glow, light. We've got ruddy handsomeness, whereas we've got cold, darkness, and ugliness, frankly, on Scrooge's side. So we have this stark set of contrasts, which are lining up on either side of the page or of the scene for us. Christmas, you can't really mean that it's a humbug. "I do," said Scrooge. "Merry Christmas. What right have you to be merry? What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough. He's looking for reasons. You have to have a reason to be happy, right?" "Come then," returned the nephew gaily. "What right have you to be dismal? What reason have you to be morose? You're rich enough." Throws it right back at him in a humorous way, but pointing out that according to Scrooge's logic, right, he should be happy. Humbug. "Don't be cross, Uncle," said the nephew. "What else can I be," returned the uncle, "when I live in such a world of fools as this? Merry Christmas, out upon Merry Christmas. What's a Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money? A time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer. A time for balancing your books and having every item in 'em through a round dozen of months presented dead against you. If I could work my will," said Scrooge indignantly, "every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. He should." Like I said, Scrooge at some level is enjoying this. You can't make up metaphors like this, buried with a stake of holly through his heart. You can't make up stuff like this. and not enjoy it at least a little bit. There's a kind of shimmer going on in his rhetoric here. Okay, putting that to the side, what is oppressing Scrooge about Fred's worldview? What is bothering him here? What makes it Fred's world a world of fools, as Scrooge says? It's that it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up. Life is a series of things being taken away from me. The years of my life, money, bills, everything is an onus. It's a burden. It's something passing. It's something lost. And we're supposed to celebrate? It doesn't add up. He wants to balance the books and make sense of it, but he can't. Whereas Fred is happy in spite of how much it costs to live. His happiness rises above all of the factors that could go into it. There's something gratuitous about happiness, in other words. That's what Fred shows Scrooge here. And Scrooge is vexed by it. Gratuity. The sum being more than the value of the parts. That's what Scrooge can't explain and what he's trying to resist here. It's foolishness. Notice that it is a kind of foolishness. It doesn't add up. It doesn't balance out. You can't explain it.